welcome into episode 2 of Around the Leagues with Brady B. I am your host, Brady Bauer, and I'm glad to have you back with me today on this wonderful Monday morning. Some housekeeping items before we jump into the episode today. I just want to thank everyone for tuning into the last episode. I hope you guys all enjoyed that breakdown and stories of my rise to fandom of Chicago sports and some other teams I like. And if you haven't yet, please go follow my page on Instagram at Around the Leagues Pod. Once again, that is Around the Leagues Pod. You can follow me there for all updates, scheduling, programming, and anything else that the show will have. In today's episode, since the NBA season is literally right upon us, it's the day before the NBA season, and I am feeling like a little kid on Christmas Eve. When I was younger, I really didn't get as excited for basketball as I do now. Now I got all the apps. I have Peacock ready to go. I got NBC ready to go. NBA League Pass has been resubscribed to, and I'm ready to watch all the NBA games every single night. The NFL is obviously in full swing, but besides the NFL, baseball is coming to the end. Hockey is just starting, and the NBA is just starting. So we'll have sports on every day throughout the week. So if you're bored of sports, get ready to learn more sports, buddy. So for today's episode, we are going to be giving a real season preview of the NBA teams. We're going to be starting in the Eastern Conference, the weaker of the conferences by far. The East is up for grabs for anyone, and I think anyone could win it. Starting with the Eastern Conference. While last year's playoffs were one of the best in recent memories, with teams going on historic runs such as the Pacers, the Thunder, the Knicks going on a nice run that the city of New York hasn't seen in some time, one devastating thing that happened during this run was Jason Tatum getting injured. During the playoffs, Jason Tatum went for a loose ball and he ruptured his Achilles. Unfortunately, after this injury, the Celtics could not recover, and this caused a lot of discussion internally for the Celtics. A team that was already battling the salary cap had to make decisions on what players they're going to keep and what players they're going to move on from. This is a new thing that you're going to be seeing a lot within the NBA with the new NBA salary cap apron. If you go over a certain amount of money and you dip into the luxury tax, you are going to have to pay the cost. That's going to be fines or other things that the NBA causes on the teams. So there's no way around it anymore. You're going to have to navigate your cap and manage your players the best way you can. The Celtics have players like Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Drew Holiday, Derek White, Kristaps Porzingis, all were signed to very big contracts. And with the new rules I just listed, you're not going to be able to keep all these players. So in the offseason, the Celtics had to move on from Kristaps Porzingis, Drew Holiday, and Al Horford. All three of these players were huge in their previous championship, but business is business, and their salary caps, new restrictions, prevented them from keeping this team together. Drew Holiday trade, they were able to get a young point guard back in Anthony Simons, but just like the previous issue, they're going to have to pay Simons before the next offseason comes around. So looking at it right now, it's more of a time filler until they get Jason Tatum back and assess the rest of their options. One of those options possibly being in the draft. Without Jason Tatum, the projected roster going into this season is nothing crazy. They got Luke Garza, who has been a bench player for most of his career, hasn't cracked any minutes. He was on the Timberwolves last year, and you would just see him on the bench cheering in his street clothes. They got another journeyman in Gordon Yang in a trade, but waived him soon after to make more cap space. So that's going to be a key theme with these teams is cap space, cap space, cap space. They also signed Terrence Mann to a deal. Terrence Mann is another rotation player. I'm a huge Terrence Mann fan. I think he's good on a competitor, but right now the Celtics are not that team, and they have to get back to that level. But with Joe Mazzulla, their head coach, he can get the best out of his players. He is a no-nonsense type of coach, and he will put the foot down to get players to buy in. Moving on, we have the Indiana Pacers. This is a very interesting team. If you're watching the new Netflix series Starting Five, they have Tyrese Halliburton in the show. So there's 5 of them, and he's one of the players that they featured. And a little ominous thing that he said during the show was if he ever loses a Game 7, then he is going to be sick for the rest of his life. And unfortunately for him, that is what happened. Pacers were coming off their best season since the Reggie Miller days, and they reached the finals. The Pacers, unfortunately, had an offseason filled with dread. They were one win away from the NBA championship, but Tyrese Halliburton went down with an Achilles injury that put a wrench in that game and this Pacers season. Unfortunately, the offseason didn't start off that good for them either. Their starting center, who has been a huge part in their success, left for their division rival Milwaukee Bucks. If you're not familiar, the Pacers offense relies around Tyrese Halliburton. It's a perimeter-centric offense with shooters on the perimeter such as Benedict Mathurin, Andrew Nembhard, Aaron Nesmith, Pascal Siakam. But with the loss of Miles Turner, one of those options is just gone. Now they're going to be more bunched up on the court and not enough spacing for Tyrese Halliburton to drive and then make that kick. In the offseason, they made up for these moves by trading for Jay Huff, a career backup center from the Memphis Grizzlies, who most NBA fans probably are not too familiar with. He didn't play at all for the Grizzlies last year, so it's just another hole that they're trying to fill. They also signed James Wiseman. Wiseman is a fine player, former number 2 overall pick, but has not lived up to his draft position at all. He is not going to be able to fill that void Miles Turner left. Both of these players are good defenders, but not on Miles Turner's level, and neither of them could shoot the 3-ball like Miles Turner can. So that is one point in your offense that is going to completely obsolete from last season. They have players left on the roster like Jarris Walker and Isaiah Jackson, but these players are not the same players that Miles Turner were. They are rim-running, rebounding centers that could live in the paint and do not pop out to the perimeter. A team in the Eastern Conference that made a huge move in the offseason to try to compete with a wide-open East is the Orlando Magic. The Magic took a big jump from last year, making the playoffs for the first time since the 2020 season. They showed this offseason they want to continue this progression by trading for Desmond Bane. This addressed a huge need they had, which was three-point shooting. They ranked near the bottom in the NBA in three-point percentage three-pointers taken. By trading for Bane, they fit this need. He's a career three-point shooter of 41%. They also added a great veteran presence off the bench to operate when their starters go off the court. Tyus Jones is a true winner. He won in college at Duke, and he's made huge impacts on the teams he had been in his NBA career. While this move is huge for the Magic to get them to get over the top, it also shows that they don't have any time to waste. Players like Franz Wagner, who has been a great player in his career so far, has to step up to truly be considered one of the better forwards in the NBA to help this team go farther than last year. Jalen Suggs, who was a top 5 pick in the draft 4 seasons ago, needs to live up to that draft selection and prove that he can be a consistent player to help this team build. The Milwaukee Bucks are another huge question mark coming into the season. The role players that they had when they won their championship are no longer there. Chris Middleton was traded at the deadline last year, and Brook Lopez signed elsewhere in free agency. The move that they made for Damian Lillard 2 years ago was a swing and a miss. It's literally they were trying to fix expired goods. Him and Giannis never went well together. The first season, they tried to make it work. Everyone knew where it was heading. The second season, they come back with the same roster without making any changes, and they expected things to change. But as we saw, it did not. Dame Lillard went out with an injury, and the Bucks were filled with questions throughout. During the offseason, the Bucks waived Dave, and they were able to make some more money. The decision to get rid of him led to them signing Miles Turner. Previously mentioned Turner played a huge role in the Pacers' finals runs. The same can be said about the role that he is going to play in Milwaukee. Giannis plays best when he has another rim-protecting defender in the paint with him. We've seen that with his time playing with Brook Lopez. Turner is a great signing for them that is going to help the Bucks for the current season and the future with him. The Bucks are in win-now mode, and the future of Giannis is extremely uncertain. Recently, rumors have came out that he was extremely interested in joining the Knicks in the offseason. Another rumor came out that Him and his wife have bought another house in Greece, and they are going to be moving there permanently when he's done playing. That could be this season, that could be next season. That can never happen for all we know. But rumors are going to swirl, and players are going to have to address them at some point. And with him being pretty open about the Bucks and the franchise not doing things exactly how he wants, there is a world where we could see Giannis Antetokounmpo in a different jersey next season. I hope that's in the NBA, but you never know. Players might be homesick and might want to go back home, spend time with their family where they grew up. Giannis has been away from Greece for a long time. He's made quite a career in the NBA. So what could stop him from leaving? The fans can't be mad at him for wanting to go and live with his family. The next team we have to break down is the New York Knicks. It has been shown that Jalen Brunson and this team is able to compete in and year out. He's one of the best players across the sports that absolutely elevates their games during the postseason. You see it with Reggie Jackson in the MLB. You're seeing it right now with Kiki Hernandez on the Dodgers. These players turn up when the playoffs come. During the regular season, Brunson averaged a good 26 points per game. When the playoffs came around, he jumped up to 29.4 points per game. While that 3 points doesn't seem like a lot, he has a killer instinct when the playoff comes around. This uptake in scoring is a huge reason why they're able to reach the Eastern Conference Finals. The Knicks team plays a brand of old-fashioned basketball in terms of physicality. The core alongside Brunson consists of Mikal Bridges, OG Anunoby, Josh Hart, and Karl Anthony Towns. They also shook off their bench this offseason, which I really like. The addition of Jordan Clarkson and Gershon Yabusele, who has the same physicality of all their other players to the team. Clarkson gives them a spark off the bench for instant offense, something that they lacked in the playoffs last season, with Miles McBride filling the role nicely in the regular season, but in the playoffs, his high was only 11 points. While I believe the Knicks have the best chance to win the Eastern Conference this season, the move that scares me is the firing of Tom Thibodeau. This isn't a bias of him being a former Chicago Bulls coach, where he was very good, but he is also a huge reason for the physicality and effort that the Knicks played with. They went in the direction of Mike Brown as a newer hire, which isn't a bad decision, looking at what he brings. Former Coach of the Year in 2023, where he was a key to bringing the Kings back to relevance and leading them to the second highest scoring mark in NBA history. In 2023, they had a game where they beat the Lakers 176 to 175. And when you're looking at it, you might think, oh, how many overtimes did that take? I had the same question going back and reviewing this game, but it was only 2 overtimes. That is absolutely absurd. Unfortunately, I remember this game quite well, but I was not watching it at the time. I got into a Harry Potter kick, so I was watching that, and I looked at the game and saw it was 150 to 1-something in the first overtime. And then next thing you know, it's 176 to 175. That's absurd. I've never seen anything like it, and I don't think you will. You can't even see that in the All-Star game when you think about it. There's setup that stops that because some people don't want to see that much scoring. Back in the olden days, people would not be able to comprehend this amount of offense taking place in the NBA game. My ultimate hater team that I just like to diss on is the Cleveland Cavaliers. I have immense beef with the city of Cleveland. Every time I've gone there, it's never ended well. When I was younger in football, I got a concussion there. Second time I went, we lost in the championship. And the third time I went, the Bears lost in Justin Fields' first start to the Browns, where they got absolutely slaughtered. Moving on to the Cavs, though, this review has nothing to do with my hate for the Cavs, I promise. Last season, the Cleveland Cavaliers finished with the best record in the Eastern Conference and the second best record in the NBA. Dominating the Eastern Conference with players like Donovan Mitchell, Evan Mobley, and Darius Garland all being selected to the All-Star game. This offseason, they traded Isaac Okoro. They drafted him from Auburn with hopes of him being a great 3-and-D player, but he did not pan out. So the Bulls, who do all the time, takes those aspired goods, and we traded him for Lonzo Ball. Lonzo Ball, my favorite player maybe ever. Remember the days where him, LaMelo, and LiAngelo were dominating the Chino Hills days? on ballislife.com on YouTube, just absolutely slamming down on people. Those were the days. Now Lonzo is in the NBA on his 4th team, and he's looking to make another great addition to every team that he's been on. The Cavaliers also added DeAndre Hunter last year at the trade deadline, a 3-and-D forward that plays his role extremely well. And with the addition of Lonzo Ball, a lineup with him and DeAndre Hunter is going to be very tough for teams to match up with offensively. Does anybody remember the last time that Detroit was talked about with hype going into an NBA season? Because I certainly don't. You might have to go back to the 1980s and 90s to get that. Detroit sports as a whole is on an uptick. The Lions are good. Michigan got good and won the championship. And the Pistons are back to the playoffs for the first time since the 2018 season. However, they really didn't make any big moves to help them continue to get better this last offseason. They have a true star point guard in Cade Cunningham, who is quickly becoming one of the best young players in the NBA. They have a great center, Jalen Duran, who is an absolute body. If you look at him, you'd think he is a middle linebacker in the NFL. He's absolutely huge, solid. No one's getting past him. You try to put a body on him, he's sending you back. They got more young depth in Asar Thompson and Ron Holland. But with the Tobias Harris in your starting lineup and them not addressing a true power forward, this could hurt them their season. Tobias Harris should be on the bench, and they should have looked at other options to fit in with the younger core of their players. Their three-point shooting will still be there with the addition of Duncan Robinson and bringing back gambler Malik Beasley. But they have a lot of guards on the roster and not enough bigs to help pick up the slack when Jalen Duran is off the court. That was a very strange story this offseason. Twitter, Reddit, TikTok, everyone was running with the story that Malik Beasley was shaving points in NBA games, purposely losing so he would win bets and his team would lose. But after an investigation by the NBA, that was shown to not be true. And that's a lot of the things that we're seeing with sports recently is players getting caught up in gambling stories, which should be expected because the NBA promotes it on all their channels. Every TV show you watch, you'll see a gambling ad. So it's just getting more and more acceptable for a younger audience. And of course, if someone misses a three or they make a bad play, everyone now looks to see if they were gambling or something like that. Getting back into the Pistons, to me, it's kind of infuriating when a team has a great season, overperforms, and then comes back and does absolutely nothing to help improve the team. And that's exactly what the Pistons did. Jalen Duran can't stay on the floor at all times, and I just don't have any confidence in anyone else on that team to help him and take minutes off of his load. A team that I expect to take the biggest step back is kind of surprising, but it's the Miami Heat. The Heat could always be in contention with Eric Spoelstra at the helm of the coaching. He's a great coach. He could win with less teams than he does right now. This season, they do have Bam Adebayo, Tyler Hero, Andrew Wiggins, Davion Mitchell. But I don't think that's the same team that could go to the finals like Jimmy Butler did when he was on the team. Obviously, Jimmy requested the trade last year. They got back Andrew Wiggins. Wiggins is a fine piece, but he's not Jimmy Butler. Jimmy Butler had the team on his back. We all know that famous picture of him from the bubble when he was on the scores table looking down. He just carried them to the finals by himself. They're not going to have that anymore. Bam Adebayo is an all-star. He's a gold medalist. He can only do certain things on the court. He's a defender, rebounder, and a post player. Tyler Hero, great scorer, great isolator. Doesn't play much defense. In the draft, they were able to take Kaspar Jastaperos from Illinois. But watching a lot of Illinois games last season, he didn't look like an NBA caliber starter to me. And obviously, his first year in the NBA, he isn't going to be at a starting level. He's a rookie, an unproven rookie at that has to play a big role. In the offseason, they gave contracts to Nikola Jovic and are banking on Kellen Ware to take a huge step forward. But without those players developing, this team is lost. They might have to hit the reset button sooner rather than later. The Atlanta Hawks, what a great offseason for the Hawks. They lost Clint Capella, but they upgraded by adding Kristaps Porzingis. They also had an internal addition in my eyes with Onyeka Okongwu getting the keys to the starting center position. They have a great point guard in Trae Young who is constantly overlooked, but with one of the best defenders, Dyson Daniels, with him at shooting guard, he's going to have a lot less responsibility on the defensive end of the floor. Dyson Daniels is everywhere on the basketball court. As Stacey King says, there's 5 of them out there. He can get steals on one end of the floor and instantly break out in transition and get an easy layup. They also have the less talked about number 1 overall pick in NBA history, Zakar Rakashar. If he is able to take a huge leap next year, that will not only help them with scoring, but he's also a great defender. Him, Dyson Daniels on the floor together will be a matchup problem for a lot of teams in the league. An X-Factor addition that they made this offseason was Nickeil Alexander-Walker from the Timberwolves. He's going to be playing off the bench, and that's where he thrives best. We've seen him try to start when he was on the Jazz and in the Pelicans, but it just didn't go well for him. Coming off the bench for the Hawks, that's what they need. They need that defender that's going to be a nuisance on you every step of the floor. And Nickeil Alexander-Walker has that killer instinct, and he wants to win a championship just like his cousin Shea did. Going up north to Toronto, this is going to be their first full season with Brandon Ingram. I'm typically against teams paying players before they play for the season, but not a lot of people want to go up north. It's a different country. No one wants to leave the United States. For instance, if you're from California, you don't want to get drafted to the Toronto Raptors and have to go live up in Toronto for the first 4 years of your career. So they traded for Brandon Ingram last year. That's the only really way they could acquire talent is by trading for them. So they got Brandon Ingram. They already had Scotty Barnes, obviously, since they drafted for him. However, with the amount of money they're paying players on this roster, like Jakob Poeltl, RJ Barrett, Emmanuel Quickley, I don't think this team is going to be a competitor anytime soon. One thought I have is, did they potentially pay these players to give trade targets for a player like Giannis or a Jaylen Brown if they become available at the deadline? Or is it just simply teams trying to make a last-ditch effort to be relevant in the NBA? I personally think that's what they did. They have a history of winning with Kawhi Leonard. They fired their basketball executive. They're in a weird spot right now, and I feel like there's a lot of things they have to undo before they can go forward. This team is just not, like I said, it's not a championship contender. They only have few young pieces in Grady Dick and Colin Murray-Boyles. Grady Dick has not shown very much at the NBA level besides being a serviceable role player. And Colin Murray-Boyles had a lot of question marks coming into the draft. And when he was drafted, if you look at the video, when they say the name Toronto, he swears and looks very disappointed. He definitely did not want to leave South Carolina to come to Toronto. Up next on the review is the Brooklyn Nets. They had 5 first-round picks. Yes, 5 first-round picks last year in the draft. They have a very funny cast of characters in the starting lineup with D'Angelo Russell, Cam Thomas, Michael Porter Jr., and Nicholas Claxton. All of those guys are very solid NBA players, but that looks like it's just a mosh posh of players. It looks like if you grab something from your cabinet and throw it in a freaking soup. It's just everything is mixed together. D'Angelo Russell, Cam Thomas, and Michael Porter Jr., the 3 of them don't pass the ball. There's a meme, no pass, no rock from Michael Porter Jr. He gets the ball and shoots it. It doesn't matter where he is on the court. He always has a green light. When they trade for Michael Porter Jr., they're giving up Cam Thomas, which doesn't really do much for me. You're pretty much gaining the same player. I think it benefits the Nuggets more than it benefits the Nets. But with the 5 first-round picks, that's where I really had a problem. They drafted Igor Denon, Nolan Traore, Ben Saraf, Danny Wolf, and Drake Powell. Igor Demon and Ben Saraf are very similar players. And Igor Demon, as you've watched him in college last year at BYU, he doesn't have the explosiveness, and none of these prospects do. They're all solid, I guess, role players, but you only get 5 spots in a basketball court. There's already have their 5 starters. I can't see any of these guys cracking the starting lineup. So I just don't understand what their play was here. And then by drafting these guys, you have players like De'Aaron Sharp and Keon Johnson, veterans whose roles are now in question. They signed there in the offseason, and then they drafted 5 players that practically took their spot. No GM's going to draft 5 players and not have them contribute. That's a waste, and he would hear about that every day for the rest of his job. Especially a team that already has question marks from the fan base after they had a failed big 3 in Kyrie, James Harden, and Kevin Durant. At least that's a competent swing and a miss. This doesn't have really anything. Danny Wolf, he went to Michigan, and as you've seen in the tournament, he got exposed a lot in the pick and roll and at the basket. He's not a very good defender, doesn't have a lot of athleticism, and that's what you need in this league. You're not going to be able to guard players like Victor Wembanyama, Alpha Guang Sengun, Nikola Jokic. You're just not going to be able to guard those players without that athleticism and quick step. So I think it's going to be another long season for the Brooklyn Nets. This fan base, if they even have a fan base over there in Brooklyn, I know a lot of the time when people go to the games, they talk about how just all suits and business-like people. So maybe that's why the team isn't making these moves. They know who their fan base is. The Knicks are going to be more outraged if they don't make moves, but the Nets are just skating by. They're the forgotten team in New York. And if people aren't giving them pressure to succeed, the owners and the general managers in the leagues we see, they'll be fine with not making the playoffs. Getting to the play-in is all they look for now. Anything to sell a few extra tickets. One of my favorite podcasts, Part of My Take, has someone on the show who is a humongous 76ers fan. So all offseason, I've been hearing all the rumors and trade news that happened with them. The player that's always in the news is Joel Embiid. He's plagued with injury almost every season, and he's just not a reliable player that I think the Sixers can continue to build around. They have him under contract still. He won the MVP the season before last, and then he got injured last season. So they have stuff there, and the fans don't want to move on from him. But Joel Embiid has had an ongoing feud with the fans for the last few years, it seems. Whenever he gets injured, fans have a lot to say about it because they think he should be back sooner than he should be. That's neither here or there because a player's health is more important than what the fans think. But Philly fans are getting annoyed with Joel Embiid. They are not trusting the process anymore. That process is definitely not going to be trusted when they have players like Paul George who will still not be ready to come back this season. Paying him all the money they do, you would hope for him to contribute and help you in the playoffs, but he came up, just like they said back in the day when he was on OKC, Pandemic P. That's what he did for the Sixers. He was a no-show. He was no help for them at all. Last year's first-round pick, Jared McCain, who was recovering from Achilles injury, also suffered a hand injury, so fans in Philly are already questioning his durability. They have 3 players that have durability issues: Paul George, Joel Embiid, Jared McCain. Those are 3 of their best players on the roster. If one of them goes down, the other 2 will not be able to pick up the slack. I almost forgot to mention Tyrese Maxey. Most improved player, shoots the ball very well, drives so fast. If you lose sight of him, he'll whoop right past you. He's the star of the team now. I think he should be the number 1 option over Joel Embiid. We haven't seen enough of him, Joel, and Paul George to say blow it up. So when everyone gets healthy, hopefully before Christmas time, they could get some acclimation together and try to build towards something special and try to do something in the springtime. Or else we might see Joel Embiid's time in Philly come to an end. Where could he go? I remember when I wanted him to come to the Bulls. I don't think I want that anymore. Teams know he's not fresh, and teams want to be fresh and start new, especially with this draft class that's coming up. It's filled with great players. You have the Boozer twins. You have the point guard from Arkansas. You have a bunch of players from the G League that are ready to get drafted and make contributions right away. I think the Sixers might be happy taking a step back this season and waiting for one of these prospects to come up, moving over and starting over from Joel Embiid. This may sound crazy, but I could see a world where the Charlotte Hornets can make the playoffs. It isn't because of my LaMelo Ball bias, like I mentioned with Lonzo. I love LaMelo. He's a great player, but I saw something earlier that says Lonzo wins games, LaMelo sells seats. And that could be true, but with the help that was brought in this year of Con Knipple, Liam McKinley, and Ryan Kalkbrenner, those are good building pieces to set up around LaMelo Ball. They also have Brandon Miller and Miles Bridges in the starting lineup. They did a great job of bringing in players that complement each other and can pick up the slack when one goes off the court. For instance, Colin Sexton. They got Colin Sexton and a 2030 second-round pick by just giving up Yusuf Nurkic, a center that they didn't even want on the roster and only took on for salary cap. If LaMelo gets hurt and he has to miss games, they also have Trey Mann and Colin Sexton, a proven point guard that can score and run an offense. I'm not saying he's better than LaMelo. I would never say that. I love LaMelo too much. But Colin Sexton could be reliable. In the past, they've had players like Ish Smith, Spencer Dinwiddie to try to come in and fill that void for LaMelo. And obviously, they're nowhere near his level. But Colin Sexton will be closer to that than some of these other players can offer. The Wizards are a team that casual NBA fans might not be able to name many players on. This offseason, they got CJ McCollum, which is so random looking at. CJ McCollum was one of the key players in the Trailblazers runs years ago, and now he's just shipped off to Washington, where it seems all players' careers go to die. We saw it with Kyle Kuzma, where people forgot he existed last year. Jordan Poole, the same thing. You go to Washington, you don't get a lot of coverage on the national media, and your team isn't good, so no one's going to really pay attention to you. However, I do think the Wizards did a good job drafting this offseason, bringing in Trey Johnson from Texas, who's one of the best shooters in the country and could instantly step in and be one of the best shooters in the NBA. They also were able to get Will Riley, who I believe if he stayed at Illinois for one more season, he could potentially be a top 10 pick in next year's draft. But he decided to leave school after his freshman season for the draft, and he fell to 19. My previous point about not being able to name many players on the team, let's see if you can do it. They have a player named Bud Harrington. Does anybody know Bud Harrington out there? They also have Alex Sarr, who got roasted so hard last year. During the Wizards game, when he was walking onto the court, a fan had a sign that just said, "Please retire already." He was literally in the NBA for about 12 games at this point, and players were already calling for his head. That's how ruthless fan bases could be in the league. If your team isn't producing, they're going to come for you, and they're going to come for you hard. Another player that they have on the team is Bayla Coulibaly, who I really like as a player. He's a great defender. If you watch Alex Caruso when he was on the Bulls or last year on the Thunder, he's a player just like that. He'll hog the passing lanes, run in transition, and help set up his teammates and make the team better in every aspect. So that's the Eastern Conference. If we want to break it down real quick, my favorites to win the East are going to be the New York Knicks. I'm going to sprinkle a little cash on there on DraftKings and hopefully win that. But I just think they're bringing back the most talent, and they added the most talent. Jordan Clarkson might not seem like a huge move to the casual NBA fan, but knowing what they needed last year in the playoffs, he will fit that need. He'll come in. He's got a green light at all times. They had that last year in Campaign, but Campaign has a limit on him. He's like a toy that has a warranty. If you're using him too much, he's going to break quicker. And that's what he does. If Campaign has a good game, he's going to think he's unstoppable and come back next game and try to do the same thing. In the East, I also like, if you're also placing bets, I kind of like Cade Cunningham to win NBA MVP. He's a do-it-all type player, could get triple-doubles, rebound, run the fast break, shoot, drive, play defense. He does it all. And if the Pistons take a big step, look out for Cade Cunningham to be the reason for them making it far this season. Switching over to the Western Conference, we're going to start with my favorite team and the reigning NBA champions, Oklahoma City Thunder. The Thunder were not going to make the same mistake they made when they didn't sign James Harden and Kevin Durant. They inked Shea to a 4-year contract extension, and they also signed his running mate Jalen Williams. And not to mention, they also have another Jalen Williams on the team. So they have a Jalen Williams with a Y and a Jalen with a L. They signed both of them to extensions, which were huge reasons why we won the championship last year. In the draft, we took Thomas Sober and Brooks Barnhizer. Brooks Barnhizer is just down the street at Northwestern. He's a energetic player, to say the least. You'll see him jumping over players. Last year he fell and he hit his tooth on the ground and it broke and he was bleeding everywhere on the court. And he was just smiling through it all. Thomas Sober, if you're familiar with the AAU team Rob Wave Elite, I know many of you probably have never heard of them, but they're an internet AAU team that go all over tournaments. They're ran by Cam Wilder, who used to be a YouTuber, and they had Thomas Sober on the team. So it's very fun to see players from YouTube moving on and succeeding in their careers and getting drafted to the NBA. One thing that's disappointing, however, is Thomas Sober did tear his ACL this offseason while training, so he's going to be missing the whole season. And then we also lost Nikola Jovic, who was our draft pick from last season, who was out last season, and this season he had an operation to remove some tumor in his testicular region, so he will also be missing the start of the season as well. The Thunder have a team that have their head on their shoulders, and I can't see them taking a step back. However, a lot of NBA fans will start a narrative if they don't have as good as record as they did last year, saying this team won't make noise in the playoffs, they'll run into trouble, watch out for LeBron, watch out for different matchups. I heard that last year, and we succeeded and got through it. I'm not worried about the Thunder. Shai Gilgeous is the best player in the NBA. He got the MVP award. Jalen Williams has been practicing shooting with his left hand this offseason. Literally form shooting with his left hand. That is extremely difficult to do, and he makes it look so easy. There's a clip of him shooting from the three-point line, driving off the dribble, shooting fadeaways, all with his left hand. The team that made the ultimate splash this offseason was the Houston Rockets. Already coming off a great season last year where they were the second seed, they added to that by trading for Kevin Durant. In this trade, the only piece they gave up was Jalen Green, who the Rockets fans gladly were off their team after his disgusting playoff performance last year. They kept a lot of pieces just like the Thunder. Amon Thompson is coming back with another offseason to improve offensively. Reed Shepherd, who was their high draft pick last year, has a chance to be the most improved player in the league if he's given the opportunity, which all signs point to. He had a great summer league, and so far in training camp, he has also done a great job of leaning into the team and showing what his role could be. They also gave a contract extension to Jabari Smith and still have the young star center of Alpenguen Sengun that has already made one All-Star game, and his presence is known to the NBA community, with people coining him the name Baby Joker. Obviously, shout out to Nikola Jokic, one of the best centers we have ever seen. The Houston Rockets bench is extremely deep as well, with versatile forwards in Dorian Finney-Smith and Tari Eason. They maintain their three-point specialist in Aaron Holiday and have a great backup center in both Clint Capella and Steven Adams. This team just gets deeper and deeper every time I look at it. Even though they lost Fred VanVleet in the offseason, Reed Shepherd could come in and play that role. I was so excited to see Fred VanVleet on this team, though, not having to be the number one option where he had to be a bunch of years with Kevin Durant. I was so excited to see Fred VanVleet come in and not be a number one option where he's had to do so much in his career. With Kevin Durant being his running mate, he could have done his job, sat in the corner, shot threes. He didn't have to be in the main offensive focus. Kevin Durant would have taken care of that. But now we're going to be robbed of that for one season, and hopefully Fred VanVleet could come back fast, it's healthy, and come make the Rockets a contender so Kevin Durant could win a championship by himself. So all the naysayers and the haters could get off Kevin Durant for his choice of going to the Warriors. A move that baffles all NBA fans to this day is the Dallas Mavericks trading away Luka Doncic last season. The Lakers didn't have as much time as they would have wished to get acclimated with the new superstar, and that showed with them getting eliminated early on in the playoffs. This team, however, with everyone talking about them being the biggest market in the country, they didn't make necessary steps to improve their team. Their biggest move was signing Jake LaRavia, who was a role player on the Kings throughout his career. They also signed Marcus Smart, Rory Hachimura, and DeAndre Ayton. Rory was already on the team, but the new players like DeAndre Ayton and Marcus Smart were let go from their previous teams. And everyone knows that's not a good sign. If you're getting let go by a team and another team picks you up, there's a reason for that. We saw it last year with Marcus Smart. He's not the same player that he was on the Celtics. He's not that guy who was diving for loose balls, getting into his players' ears and showing them that that's the way to do it. He's not that same player, and I don't think he's going to get back to that level. DeAndre Ayton, clips have been coming out of his time with the Suns, and he does not seem like a team player. He blames everybody for everything else. He yells at his teammates for doing things that he does on the court. He doesn't take accountability. He just doesn't love the game of basketball. One of the weirdest stories last year was when he blamed his slow start on the Trailblazers for not having a bed. Keep in mind he's making millions of dollars, and his excuse for not playing good basketball was because he did not have a bed yet. But with LeBron, he never shows signs of slowing down. So maybe having Luka's young stardom could spark the rest of the players to live up to their game. A quote that Mike Miller said, a former teammate of LeBron's, that when you play with LeBron, you just have to be ready to make at least 3 to 4 shots a game. Never try to move out of your role. This team has that same feel of role players to me. So if players like Gabe Vincent, Dalton Knecht could potentially play this role and give them the depth they need, they could potentially make the playoffs, but I still don't see them doing anything like going to the finals or anything like that. Last year, the Denver Nuggets did not go down without a fight. I learned that the hard way, being a Thunder fan, having to go against the Nuggets in the Western Conference Finals. It was a fun series, but it took a toll on me. Nikola Jokic continues to dominate after all these years of seeing him play the game. Whenever he takes one of his one-leg fadeaway shots from 3 with a hand in his face, turning around, I question the game of basketball. I question how someone could be able to do that. They have a good core alongside Aaron Gordon, a player who elevates his game in the biggest moments, and Jamal Murray, who has shown that he is capable of catching fire and dictating an entire playoff series. When Jamal Murray is on and Jokic is doing what he does every game, the Nuggets are a team that no one should want to face in the playoff. The younger pieces continue to develop, with Christian Brown showing that he could be a reliable starter in their offense, and they have X factors coming off the bench in Peyton Watson. If Peyton Watson is able to make a jump like Christian Brown did, this team could be trouble. They also have Julian Strawther from Gonzaga. When you have players come from Gonzaga, Kansas, Duke, Villanova, they have that winning mentality. They play the game the right way. They come in and help your team. They don't try to step out of their role. They do whatever the coach asks for them. If this Clippers team was put together 7 years ago, then they would be the best team in NBA history. James Harden, Bradley Beal, Brook Lopez, Chris Paul, Nicholas Batum, Kawhi Leonard, Chris Dunn, Derrick Jones Jr. That's a lot of old players and no young players. Unfortunately for the Clippers, you actually have to win games in the regular season and can't coast to the playoffs, where I think if they get in, they could be a threat. A lot of experience and skill that could slice and dice their offense to make their teams uncomfortable. Chris Paul is a point guard that is going to be more selfish than ever with the players that he has around him. They also have John Collins, an acquisition they made this offseason, who is one of the younger players on this core. And it's just, like I said, a lot of these guys have missed times throughout their career. And you can't skip to the playoffs. There's no simulation button. I don't think they know this. You have to play the regular season. And looking at this roster, if players go down, who do they have to back them up? Another 40-year-old that has the same chance of getting injured? Picking up someone from the G League? There's just so many questions that this team has. It's all about health. If the team could get into the playoffs, then they could make a run. A major storyline that has been lingering over the Golden State Warriors has been Jonathan Kuminga and his contract situation. Last year was very strange for Kuminga. He received praise from his teammates and coaches, but couldn't crack the rotation in the playoffs. This offseason, that was put to rest when the Warriors and him agreed on a 2-year, $48 million deal. This is a big jump for a franchise to make. They go from not wanting to play the guy to giving him a $24 million contract to stay with the team. The second move they made this offseason was signing the aging wonder Al Horford. Al Horford's a fine player, but when you have a window that is closing quickly, going different direction could have been a better move for the franchise. The other young players on the roster, Moses Moody and Willie Richard, must play a huge role or else his team is going to be stuck in the mud having trouble fixing their team. The Memphis Grizzlies has had themselves a nice little offseason, not going overboard and hurting their team's assets for potential trades, but addressing needs they had. Once they traded away Desmond Bane for KCP, it's a move done for the future. Him and Ja Morant were not going to win together, so keeping him and Jaren Jackson together is the direction they went. They also brought in Ty Jerome, who plays a great backup role. They also have Jalen Wells, Jaren Jackson, Sani Okanta. This team is not doing much this offseason, but they seem to be a move away. If they can get a wing defender to match with Ja Morant and Jaren Jackson, this team could continue to develop. The Sacramento Kings, as we know, they decided to trade for the Bulls' former players in Zach LaVine and DeMar DeRozan. If those two weren't going to play well and win and mesh together in Chicago, it is not going to start in Sacramento. The starting lineup is a spacing problem. Zach LaVine is a ball-dominant driver who needs great perimeter shooters besides him to succeed. But all they have is Dennis Schroeder, DeMar DeRozan, Domantas Sabonis, and Malik Monk. Thinking about the spacing in that lineup makes me want to puke. And then off the bench, they recently just signed Russell Westbrook, another guy who can't shoot the ball. The bench is very bad. It's literally empty. If Sabonis is out of the game, they're going to have to rely on Drew Eubanks to run their center position. Looking at it from a team's perspective, if they want to sell extra tickets via the play-in, this team is just good enough to do that. The Dallas Mavericks are going to be my number one league pass team to watch. Trading away Luka, but getting absolutely lucky in the lottery, having rights to draft Cooper Flagg. They have so much depth with players like Daniel Gafford, PJ Washington, Max Christie coming off the bench. With a starting lineup of Kyrie, when he comes back, Klay Thompson, Anthony Davis, and Derek Lively, I don't think it's possible for people to score on this team. The paint defense is going to be absolutely ridiculous with Cooper Flagg, Derek Lively, and AD. All 6'10 plus. If you get past one guy, the other defender will be there on the other side of the rim, getting ready to send the shot into the cheap seats. Only thing that is somewhat concerning is their guard depth, but that can be filled with healthy Kyrie taking much of that load. The funniest thing to me this offseason was when the Knicks fired Tom Thibodeau and started requesting an interview with Jason Kidd. Entitled Knicks thinking a contending team is going to let their coach leave them for a lesser team. Just absolutely ridiculous. Every single offseason, Knicks think everything is going to go in their direction. When KD was a free agent years and years ago, they had billboards all over the city hoping to attract him. They did the same thing with LeBron, Chris Bosh, Dwayne Wade, Devin Booker, Donovan Mitchell. The list goes on and on. This team goes all in for players but ends up getting the bottom tier free agents. Speaking of Devin Booker, poor Devin Booker is all alone in Phoenix once again. Bye-bye KD. The saddest photo of the offseason was Book, Dylan Brooke, and Jalen Green at Media Day together taking a forced picture, and Devin Booker looks so uninterested in those two. A great move, however, was drafting Malakok out of Duke, but this could be proved to be nothing if he doesn't have any backup center to help stomach the load of a starting spot for a rookie. Devin Booker says he is locked in with the Suns for the future, but can he really be true on this? It feels at this point Devin Booker has had three different careers. The pre-Chris Paul phase, the Chris Paul phase, and the Kevin Durant phase. You can maybe even make that 4 if you want to enter the post-KD days. Devin Booker has been called empty stats player his whole career, and making moves like this doesn't help that cause. Does he want to win, or does he want to get paid and live in the nice weather of Phoenix, Arizona? Is there anybody in the world that puts their life devotion into being a Trailblazers fan? Because I would not be able to. Teams' move this offseason that caught people's attention was bringing back Damian Lillard. However, Lillard is going to miss the whole season. If I was a Trailblazers fan, I would not want to go back to Damian Lillard. This is actually borderline depressing. If you're a fan, your player demanded a trade from you years ago. He leaves for a year and then comes back like nothing's wrong, and he's already giving his praise to the city. I don't want you back, dude. That's what I would be feeling if I was a Trailblazers fan. You're pushing 35. You're coming off an Achilles injury, and the pieces we have around you aren't even that good. And the main reason he left in the first place was because they were going to draft Scoot Henderson, and he didn't want to help develop Scoot. So now he's going to be back in the same position that he wanted to avoid. It doesn't make much sense from me. Damian Lillard, you could have gone to a bunch of different teams. As much as I hate it, you could have gone to the Lakers with LeBron and had a better chance of winning than with the Trailblazers, who you're going to be stuck there forever. Why'd you go back? I don't understand. San Antonio Spurs couldn't go another couple years not making the playoffs after that streak ended with Greg Popovich. They made a splash last season training for De'Aaron Fox, but that excitement was quickly put to rest when he suffered a season-ending injury. They had the best draft out of everyone, getting Dylan Harper from Rutgers and Carter Bryant. They bring in championship experience with Luke Cornett to play a rim-running center role as a backup. They still have Stephon Castle, who was the Rookie of the Year last year. Not to mention they have Victor Wembanyama, who was a Rookie of the year before that. The Spurs are a great franchise and going to build that roster up in the right way, and they're doing just that. There are foundational pieces all over the Spurs that give the team so many options going forward. They have trade bait or development. Both are options that the Spurs have and can benefit them no matter what they do. Wemby is a legit player. Get good players around him, and he will do the rest of the work. They have better than average players right now. Watch out for the Spurs. Zion Williamson is back and is looking like a completely different person, but their roster around him is average. They got a logjam at the point guard position with Jordan Poole, Jeremiah Fears, DeJounte Murray, and Jose Alvarado. This team has plan written all over it. They also got Trey Murphy and Herb Jones, both good at 3-and-D defenders, but are they missing pieces going forward, and they need to upgrade at center. You can't have attachments to players if you have a player that you need to add. They might need to pull a trigger and trade for somebody. One trade that I suggest is potentially trading for Nicholas Claxton, a great center who does his role of rebounding, playing defender, and dunking. That's what you should have in a center. Sometimes these people want to get too cute and try to push their game to the perimeter, even though it's not feasible for them. I will always believe in Zion. People were dissing on him too hard. It's just like the Caleb Williams hate. People want to hate on Zion for no reason. We saw this during Mardi Gras. His own fans were putting signs of him looking chubby and overweight, making fun of the guy. You never know what he's going through, and I'm so glad he's back, and I hope he proves all the haters and doubters wrong. The last team to end on is the Utah Jazz. The silence is deafening, but everyone knows no one wants to go to the Utah Jazz. We saw this last year. Ace Bailey, the projected number 2 overall pick, didn't even want to go there. He didn't sign. He didn't go to any of their pre-draft workouts. He took a long, long time to sign his contract. They just have been sitting there forever. They have Lauri Markkanen, who's a good player, but he's not going to win you a championship single-handedly. They have Walker Kessler, who they're trying to trade after he had a great rookie season, but has regressed since. They got rid of Jordan Clarkson, Colin Sexton. Nothing is really going right them. They have only young players, and these young players don't even want to be there. It's just that simple. No one wants to play and live in Utah. It's one of the most boring states in the country, and these guys come from LA, Florida, Cali, New York. They don't want to go to a lesser place like Utah. They want to stay in the big markets. So unfortunately for the Jazz, they're like the Raptors. Nobody wants to go there, so you'll have to draft them. But even when they drafted players like Donovan Mitchell, they got rid of him. They didn't sign him. They couldn't make it work. So Utah just needs to do a better job overall, and they have been trying to flip that narrative by signing Danny Ainge as their GM many years ago. but that signing hasn't paid off yet. They still are very, very, very far away from contending, and it doesn't look like they're going to make any progress this season either. This was a season preview for the NBA season coming up starting Tuesday. Thank you to everybody for tuning into episode 2 of Around the Leagues with Brady B. That is my preview for all 32 NBA teams heading into the NBA season. Tuesday, October 21st, 2025, we will see the Oklahoma City Thunder raising their banner against the Houston Rockets. The second game of the doubleheader will have the two old guys going up against each other in LeBron James of the Los Angeles Lakers and Steph Curry of the Golden State Warriors. Thank you to everyone for tuning in to Around the Leagues with Brady B. This is your host, Brady Bauer, signing out. Make sure to subscribe and follow me on Instagram at Around the Leagues with Brady B Pod. Thank you. See you next week.